Hi, my name is Rajan Sheth, and today we're going to talk a little bit about the security of Chrome OS, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we think about security and why security is so important for you. So security is more important than ever for the typical business. And as we think about it, the more and more we implement technology and bring new technology into the businesses, security will be even more important. And so some of the things that you need to think about when you think about security is protecting devices and data on more endpoints. And the number of endpoints are growing as you think about not only laptops, but mobile and a variety of other endpoints that will be there within your enterprise. The continued increase in malicious threats across all verticals. We're seeing a huge increase in the number of threats that are there and the different types of threats there that are there. And so security becomes part of every IT decision you need to make. And moreover, you need to think about not only the security of the device or a piece of equipment that you have, but also about how you manage that, how you maintain it, and how you can keep it secure over time. The more connected devices you have, the more risk you are of security issues spreading. And so this becomes a very important area to deal with. So here are a couple of stats for you. So by 2019, 70% of major multinational corporations with roots in the US and Europe will face significant cybersecurity attacks. And so if you think about that, almost every business out there will be facing this at some point or another. So then looking at in the next area, the amount of spending that you'll need to think about for security will increase quite a bit as well, too. We'll see an increase of 7.6% over last year, and then it's expected to top over $113 billion by 2020. And so this is the kind of technology that you need to think about as you think about security. So Chrome OS, what we've tried to do is figure out how do we make a better PC or a better laptop, and how do we make computing better overall, and especially how do we make it more secure? How do we make it such that your laptop or your desktop or your tablet is secure by nature? And so there are a variety of things we do for this, and I'm going to tell you a lot about this over the course of this webinar. The first is that every device is built with security in mind from the ground up, all the way from the hardware, all the way through the software, all the way through to the applications. And we've taken a very unique model that I'll tell you a little bit about over the course of the webinar, about how we think about security. The second part is that the device itself is thinner in terms of the data footprint. So there's less data on the device and more data in the cloud, which inherently prevents data loss and makes it so that it's easier to protect your endpoints. It also protects you from boot up all the way through shutdown. And there are very unique things that we do to make sure that every time you boot up, we know that you're secure. And lastly, it's very easy to deploy, manage, and update. And updates are very crucial to security. You may have the most secure endpoint in the world right now, but if you don't update it, you're not keeping up with threats that are there. So we keep security in mind throughout all parts of this. So first of all, we look at this from the hardware up, and we design every board that goes into every Chromebook and make sure that security is there from the TPM security chip, which is there on every Chromebook, all the way through the firmware with a technique called verified boot, and I'll tell you more about that. The second thing we do is make sure that the operating system automatically updates itself, and we update it every 6 weeks and try to make those updates as transparent as possible. And the last thing is application protections. We make sure to sandbox applications and keep them protected from each other, but then also give you policy and management and the ability to deliver applications so that you can set the policies that you need for these devices. So on the hardware, let's start there. We have a TPM chip and a security chip on every Chrome device, regardless of price. And so what that means is that we have security all the way down to the hardware layer. And we establish that trust chain all the way from the hardware on up. And we design the firmware itself. And we make sure that we have the same firmware on every device that's out there so that we know that that will be secure. So the first part is the firmware. We have a technique called verified boot that ensures that the device is going to be secure every time you boot it. And so what we do is that we know that the signature of each part of the operating system. And so when we boot up the device, we actually check the signature of each part of the operating system and only let it go through if we're able to verify the success of that signature. If we hit malware at any point in time, or we see something that's not expected, we stop the boot process. One unique thing that we do is we actually keep two partitions. We keep two copies of the operating system on the device. And so if we detect an issue with one of the copies, we'll back up immediately to the last best known copy of the operating system and make sure that the user is protected instantly. Once the operating system is up and running, we have a variety of techniques to make sure that the user is protected. We have privilege separation and process sandboxing to make sure that applications only have the right privileges and they're separated from each other so that they can't affect each other. We have full disk encryption at a user level for every single user. So each user's set of data is encrypted with their unique key on the device. And so if you were to give a device from one user to another, their data is actually encrypted in different ways, so you can ensure that the data is protected on the device. And then, as I mentioned before, we have automatic and seamless updates that happen every 6 weeks on the operating system. So let's talk a little bit about updates. So I mentioned that Chrome OS actually has two partitions, and we actually run two copies of the operating system. What we do is that every 6 weeks, or as quickly as possible in the case of critical updates where there are security issues, we update these devices. What we'll do is we'll actually update the backup partition and update that in the background. So the user can continue to use the device and use the operating system as is while we update that backup partition. So then the next time they reboot, we switch partitions and we make it so that that backup partition becomes the primary. And the user actually doesn't even have to see anything. What they'll see is that when we've updated, they'll see an icon on the bottom of their toolbar to let them know that there is a new version of the operating system. And when they reboot, they'll just reboot into that new version. This is another critical part of this because it requires much less IT resource to be able to do this update because it's automatic. But another part of this is that oftentimes if there is work disruption involved with an update, one, it's lost productivity, but also a lot of times users may not take the update. In the case of Chrome OS, because it's in the background, users are much more likely to take that update and not have work disruption as a result of this. In the user session itself, we do a variety of things to protect the user. As I mentioned, we have per user encryption of their data to make sure that their data is protected with their own key. And then we have process sandboxing and defense in depth to make sure that each process and each application that they're running, or each web-based app, is protected from each other. And we make sure to have various layers of defense there, such that even if a certain layer is penetrated, we have other layers to protect the user from there. We also have cross-device policy compliance. And so what that means is that any device that you go to that's a Chrome device, your policies come with it, and you're able to actually protect that device no matter what where that user is. In the browser itself, we have safe browsing settings to make sure that users are going to safe sites. And if we detect that they're going to a site that we know may not be safe, we will let them know about that. And then also we have certificate enrollment and transparency to make sure that we're able to bring on user certificates and make sure that those are enrolled in the correct way and the devices are enrolled in the correct way. As we think about policy and management, that's another big area of security. So security isn't just about the security of the operating system itself, but a lot of it is about how we match the policies of your corporation and what control do we give you. And so we give you control over a variety of parts of the stack that are all done through a centralized web-based management console. And that policy is pushed out to every Chromebook that's out there that you need that policy on. So that includes things like permission controls, what a user can and can't do. So for example, disabling the camera or having particular settings about video and audio for particular for particular uses. Things like that, there are policies around. We also have policies around network and proxies, and so you can essentially set these things up before the user logs in, such that as soon as they log in the device, all of these things are all set up, no matter what device they log into. We do a variety of other things. So we have an ephemeral mode, and so you can set a user into ephemeral mode, which means that no data is actually preserved on that device. So when they log out of that device, the data is wiped from that device. And so if you have instances where you don't want the user to keep data on the device, we can support that as well. We support sign-in restrictions, so not anyone can sign into a corporate Chromebook. You can restrict it to, for example, users from your own domain to make sure that only certain users can sign that. And we sign the policy delivery as well, so that Chromebook knows that policy is coming from a trusted source and not just any source. All of this is done from the cloud. So when you update a policy, it gets updated on the Chromebook itself. As we think kind of further about this, we've been thinking a lot about app delivery. One of the recent things that we've brought onto the Chromebook is the ability to use Google Play and bring Android apps onto the Chromebook. And we have a variety of protections within Google Play to protect the user from applications that they have. One is that we have a very sophisticated server-side malware detection system in place to check the applications that are within Google Play and detect malware. We use machine learning to be able to do this, to do it in quite a bit of a different way than is done typically with applications that are there. And we do remote uninstall of malware when we detect malware that's there, and are able to actually uninstall that off of a system. We also provide a variety of controls for the administrator with Google Play. So we have a way for enterprises to be able to have a whitelist of applications that they want to permit the users to use, or a blacklist as well too. So they're able to control the applications that a user has, and also restrict sideloading of apps so that applications can only come from the Play Store. So you can't get a random application from somewhere else onto this device, and you can make sure that applications that are there are checked through the protections that we talked about before. From a networking perspective, we've gone a step above and beyond, and we have a system called verified access that can be integrated into your backend systems. And what this does is it actually checks to make sure that the Chromebook is in the right state. So it has the right version of the software. It has policies that are already delivered to it. It's complying with the policies that you want it to be complying with. So when you actually have a user go to a network service, that network service can actually check with Google to make sure that this is a safe endpoint, and then be able to ensure that if it's delivering a web-based service, it's delivering it to a safe endpoint. So Chrome OS really is built for a secure business from the ground up. We designed it from the ground up with security in mind, and we make sure that all Chrome devices that are out there meet these security requirements, so you can ensure that any device that you go to that is running Chrome OS has these protections in place. We also make it so that you have a low total cost of ownership and easy maintenance, which lets you focus on other efforts and makes it so that you don't have to focus on maintaining and managing your devices that are out there. They maintain themselves. This is a modern platform to address today's security challenges, and with regularly scheduled updates, we can ensure that not only are we meeting today's challenges, but we're meeting tomorrow's challenges as well. As you think about your endpoints, you also should consider Chrome browser on other endpoints that are outside of Chrome OS. And we have a lot of similar techniques on Chrome browser to ensure security. So the same areas around auto updates, we do that with Chrome browser as well. We ensure that we can update Chrome browser for critical security bugs, and we do regular updates every 6 weeks and automatic flash updates as well too, to make sure that Chrome browser is secure. Employees can also securely sync multiple devices, and so what that means is that if you've set your settings on one device, when you log into another device, all of your settings are synced there, including things like bookmarks, but also settings and security configurations that are there, and your passwords are kept safe as well, too. And then we also implement the similar behind-the-scenes security layers, the warnings that I was mentioning, and alerts for dangerous websites, protecting tabs from each other, and preventing eavesdropping to make sure that the user is protected. Some of the interesting things that we do with Chrome browser include these configurable auto updates, sandboxing, and safe browsing, but then also better support for web security standards, and we make sure we're on top of the latest web security standards, and better support for networking security as well too. We also have a technique called fuzzing, where we run Chrome browser in our data centers and throw a variety of challenges at it and test it and really pressure test it to make sure that with every update of Chrome browser, it's protecting protecting the user. And we try to break it with sets of threats to make sure that before you even see an update, it has been pressure tested. So in terms of where do you go from here? If you're ready to deploy Chrome OS, then definitely use this link to contact us and get in contact with your Google sales rep. And if you're not sure yet, you can try the security of Chrome browser. All you have to do is go to the link that you see on the screen to download Chrome browser, and it gives you all the tools you need, either for a single download or to be able to download it within and deploy it within your organization. So with that, we'll take questions, and you'll see an area at the bottom of your screen where you can ask questions, and we'd be happy to answer more. Thank you for listening. We appreciate your time, and looking forward to talking to you more about Chrome OS and Chrome browser.